All right, let's get right into it. Have you ever kind of looked around at your friendships and realized you're basically the unpaid therapist for, well, for everyone? You're the go-to, the rock, the person with all the answers. But then when you're the one who's struggling, it's just silence? It's a really tough spot to be in, and it turns out there are some very clear psychological reasons why this keeps happening.
I mean, just read that question. If that hits you right in the gut, then you're absolutely in the right place. Because understanding why you feel that way is the very first step toward actually changing things.
So we're going to go on a little journey here. First, we'll look at the core problem, what we're calling the given imbalance. Then we'll dig into the patterns that cause it, like the I'm fine facade, the emotional wall, and the caregiver trap. And stick around, because at the end, we'll talk about how you can start breaking the pattern.
So yeah, at its core, this is what it's all about. The giving imbalance. It's that little voice in the back of your head, that nagging feeling that you're always pouring your time, your energy, and your support out, but the tap never seems to flow back in your direction. And it feels unfair, you know? Because it is.
Okay, so why does this happen? Let's look at the first big reason, a defense mechanism that a lot of us have gotten really good at. It's the I'm fine facade. This is where we put on a show of being completely self-sufficient, even when we're secretly falling apart on the inside. There's actually a term for this. It's called hyper-independence. And the key word here is habit. This isn't necessarily who you are, it's a behavior you've learned. Maybe from past experiences where you figured out that, hey, the only person I can truly count on is me. So you just get used to solving every problem by yourself, quietly. And this just lays it out so clearly, right? Here's the catch. While you see yourself as being strong and resilient, everyone else just sees a sign that says, no help needed here. It's not that they don't want to be there for you, it's that your own actions have accidentally convinced them that you don't need them to be. Does that ring a bell for anyone? And that leads us right into the next piece of the puzzle. It's not just about turning down help, it's about building this big emotional wall that stops people from even getting close enough to see that you might need it. And this is what we can call the vulnerability block. Think about it. You can listen to a friend's deepest secrets for hours, but when the conversation turns to you, you keep it light. You talk about work, the weather, but not your worries, not your fears. You're guarding your true self, and it keeps all your relationships stuck in the shallow end of the pool.
Now, this goes hand in hand with something called passive social behavior. It's where you're just waiting for someone else to ask the deeper questions, waiting for them to magically break through your wall. But by playing it safe, you're actually putting all the work of building a real connection onto the other person. This chart really just says it all. Look at the left. That's the result of these patterns. Small talk, guarded feelings, surface stuff. But look at the right. That's what we really want, isn't it? Shared vulnerability, mutual support. And the bridge from one side to the other? It's making the choice to actually be vulnerable.
This brings us to the final, and honestly, maybe the biggest pattern of them all. Because it's one thing to have these habits, but it's a whole other ballgame when being the helper becomes your entire identity. Welcome, my friends, to the caregiver trap.
When being the caregiver is how you see yourself, you subconsciously start looking for people and situations that prove you right. You basically become a magnet for people who need their emotional baggage carried for them, because helping them reinforces your own sense of self.
And what happens when you're the designated caregiver? You end up with a total lack of boundaries. You say sure when your brain is screaming no. You're the one answering that frantic text at 10 p.m. You just don't set limits on your energy because saying no feels like you're failing at the very job you gave yourself. And the final destination for all of these patterns is exactly the same: emotional exhaustion, burnout. It's that bone-deep tiredness you feel from constantly giving from a cup that's been empty for a long time. Realizing this just isn't sustainable, that's why we're talking about all this.
So the big question is, what can we do about it? Let's move on to the most important part, breaking the pattern. Now, the goal here is not some magical overnight fix. The real goal is clarity. It's about taking everything we've talked about and turning that awareness into a tool you can actually use. So here they are, all 5 patterns in one place. I want you to look at this list not as a bunch of flaws or criticisms, but as signposts. This is your new checklist for understanding your relationships. It shows you exactly where you have the power to make a different choice. And really, that's the whole point of this explainer. That's the big takeaway. You cannot change a dynamic that you don't even see. The fact that you can now name these patterns, that means you've already taken the biggest, most important step toward building the balanced, give-and-take relationships that you really deserve.
So I'm going to leave you with this one question. As you go about your day, your week, talking to your friends, your family, which one of these patterns do you think you'll notice first? Because that moment, the moment you see it happening in real time, that's the moment you get your power back. That's the moment you can choose to do something different.